In 2025, a phone call landed like a rupture in the quiet order of Ron Howard's life, the kind that doesn't just bring news but rearranges the meaning of everything that came before it. The details were shocking, the consequences immediate, and the silence that followed was heavier than any award he'd ever held. Something had ended, violently and without warning, and the man who built a career on control and clarity suddenly had neither. For decades, Ron Howard seemed like Hollywood's exception. While others flamed out or burned bridges, he moved steadily from child star to trusted director, calm and composed, almost immune to scandal. Yet the story examined here isn't about his success. It's about a long silence, a private reckoning, and a moment that forced him to confront what a lifetime in the industry had quietly taken from him. At the center is a complicated bond, a loss that reopened old wounds, and a decision he made years earlier that still echoes. The immediate shock came amid reports that rocked the industry surrounding the death of Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle. The circumstances described in those early accounts were brutal, and for many in Hollywood, impossible to process. For Ron Howard, already carrying the weight of family fears and unresolved guilt, the news struck with particular force. Whatever the full truth of those events, the impact on him was real and destabilizing. It cracked open a silence he had maintained for most of his adult life. Ron's instinct, shaped by decades in front of cameras, was restrained. He didn't rush to microphones or issue grand statements. Instead, those close to him noticed a shift. A man known for steadiness now visibly shaken, questioning not just what had happened, but why it mattered so deeply to him. The answer lay far back, in a childhood spent under studio lights, where control became survival and emotion was something to manage quietly. Born into show business, Ron Howard never had the luxury of anonymity. From infancy, his days were structured by call times and scripts, his identity formed in a workplace that doubled as a home. Success came early, but so did isolation. He learned to be reliable, agreeable, and unfailingly professional. That discipline earned him trust, but it also taught him to lock away fear and doubt, traits that would define his public image for decades. As a child actor, Ron was celebrated as wholesome and steady, yet the praise masked a deeper loneliness. Surrounded by adults separated from normal childhood rhythms, he absorbed an unspoken rule: never let the cracks show. That lesson followed him into adolescence and adulthood, shaping how he handled pressure and how he related to others who shared his unusual upbringing. When Ron transitioned behind the camera, it wasn't just ambition driving him. Directing offered a form of agency he'd never known as an actor.
This approach set him apart from contemporaries like Rob Reiner. Where Reiner was outspoken and confrontational, Ron remained measured, preferring to let his work speak. The contrast created a dynamic that mixed respect with unspoken tension. They occupied the same rare space was surging and his family was growing. Ron made a choice that would haunt him, accepting a lengthy including the one with his younger brother Clint. Together, they shared a childhood few could understand, bound by early fame and shared pressure. When Clint struggled later in life, Ron faced a different kind of crisis, one that forced him to confront his limits. Helping Clint required a kind of honesty Ron had long avoided. Issuing an ultimatum, insisting on treatment, meant risking the loss of the one person who truly understood his past. Clint's recovery was a relief, but it didn't erase the fear or the awareness that control had boundaries. Years later, as Clint faced serious health challenges, that fear returned with new intensity.
It was against this backdrop that the report about Rob Reiner emerged. The details, as they circulated, were disturbing enough to stun an industry accustomed to tragedy. For Ron, they arrived at a moment of vulnerability, compounding his anxiety and grief. The loss wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal, tied to shared history and unspoken understanding. Ron and Rob represented two responses to the same environment. Both grew up in Hollywood's glare, both transitioned into influential creative roles, and both paid hidden costs. Rob's public activism contrasted with Ron's quiet professionalism, yet their paths intersected in ways that made the reported loss feel like a mirror held up to Ron's own life. In reflecting on Rob, Ron wasn't just mourning a colleague. He was confronting the fragility of the narrative he'd built around control and longevity. If someone as driven and passionate as Rob could be lost so abruptly, what did that say about the safety Ron believed he'd engineered for himself and his family? The emotional impact was visible in the rare moments Ron chose to speak. His words were careful, but the weight behind them was unmistakable. He spoke of family, of time, of the things that matter when careers end and lights go dark. It was a departure from the man audiences thought they knew, revealing a depth of feeling long kept private. As media reactions swelled, fans expressed shock not just at the reported circumstances, but at Ron's response. Many were struck by how deeply affected he seemed, interpreting it as evidence of bonds Hollywood rarely acknowledges. The industry often celebrates collaboration while ignoring the emotional ties that form behind the scenes. This moment forced those connections into the open. Ron's reflections extended beyond grief. They prompted a reassessment of his priorities and pace. He began turning down projects that would pull him away from home, delegating more responsibility within his production company, and embracing a slower rhythm. For a man who once measured worth by output, this shift was radical. The change wasn't framed as retirement, but as recalibration. Ron spoke of wanting presence over productivity, of valuing dinners and conversations more than deadlines. These admissions resonated with audiences who had followed his career for decades, offering a rare glimpse into the personal cost of sustained success. Yet even as he slowed down, the unease lingered. Loss has a way of reopening old questions without providing answers. Ron's guilt over missed family moments, his fear for his brother's health, and the shock of Rob's reported death converged into a single realization: some things can't be managed, directed, or fixed. This realization challenged the identity Ron had built since childhood. The boy who learned to perform calm under pressure, the director who mastered chaos, now faced a reality indifferent to preparation. It was a humbling confrontation, one that stripped away the armor of professionalism and revealed a man grappling with vulnerability. Public reaction to Ron's openness was largely supportive, though tinged with sadness. Fans recognized the courage it took to break decades of silence, to admit regret in a culture that prizes confidence. His story became less about fame and more about the universal struggle to balance ambition with connection. The narrative around Rob Reiner's loss, whatever the final clarity of those events, served as a catalyst. It forced conversations about mortality, legacy, and the unseen pressures of creative life. For Ron, it underscored the urgency of speaking while there's still time, of acknowledging pain rather than burying it beneath achievements. In quiet moments, Ron has hinted that telling his own story remains unfinished. After years of shaping narratives for others, he's only beginning to understand his own. The silence that once protected him now feels like a barrier he's learning to dismantle piece by piece. As the industry moves on, as it always does, the question remains whether this shift is permanent or simply another chapter. Ron Howard has spent a lifetime proving he can adapt, but adaptation now means something different. It means accepting uncertainty and letting go of the illusion that longevity equals immunity. In the end, the story isn't about a single reported tragedy or a single regretful decision. It's about accumulation, the way small compromises and unspoken fears add up over decades. It's about a man confronting the truth that even a carefully directed life can veer off script. Ron Howard's journey offers no neat resolution, only a quiet reckoning. The silence has been broken, but the answers remain incomplete. And perhaps the most unsettling realization is that the stories we avoid telling may be the ones that matter most. If this reflection leaves anything unresolved, it's this: after a lifetime of control, can letting go become Ron Howard's final, most difficult act? If this story moved you, consider sharing your thoughts below and subscribing to Hollywood Unsealed for more investigations into the lives behind the legends.